Alrighty, so welcome everybody to Project and Portfolio 2. This month is going to set you guys up for the next few months going forward, so into level design and into Project and Portfolio 3. So this is the 3-month capstone at the end of the associates half of the program. So a lot of information to take in at this point. There is some new content that we're going to be introducing you to, but a lot of it is starting to use what you've learned from design tools, from GD1, from PNP1, from programming foundations. All these, the first introductory courses, you're going to start to be applying that information and starting to show what you can do as a designer in this class. So you're going to have some of this creative freedom that maybe you haven't quite had up until this point. So one thing to keep in mind for this class is there's 2 tracks that's going to be running along simultaneously, right? There's going to be a technical track and a creative track, 2 elements of the class to keep in mind. So Perforce is the versioning control software that we're going to be learning and going over. Does anybody know why we're teaching you Perforce?
Backing up data, so you have different revisions you can input, so if you lose data from a hard drive or from any other thing, it should be backed up on the server.
Yep. So that's a good reason of like what versioning control is, but the reason why we use it, why we're teaching it to you, is because this is what's used out in the industry. Version control is very, very well used across the entire industry, but it's even more so when it comes to Perforce and the bigger companies. Perforce can handle up to thousands, tens of thousands, close to 50,000 users, all working on the same server. So it can handle big teams. And our program advisory board that comes in, they tell us that they want to see Perforce on resumes. Same thing with Unity. We've made the switch from Unreal to Unity a few months back, or sorry, about a year back or so, at the beginning of 2015, middle of 2014, because that's what they want to see. There's a lot more experience and a lot more opportunities if you know Unity, whether it's big companies, smaller companies, anything in between. Same thing goes for Perforce. So it's very well used, and it can be intimidating, so you should definitely be conscious that this is a professional tool. It's not here to help you like most software today is, like with Apple, like everything's very easy and user-friendly. Perforce isn't like that. It is going to be expecting you knowing what you're doing. So definitely take the time to learn it. We're in a safe environment this month, and there's really a lot of the projects are contained. It's not like you're going to be working on one thing the entire month, but you're going to be setting yourselves up to learn Perforce at an individual level, and then moving forward when we go into level design and Project and Portfolio 3, you're going to be using it in a team setting. So definitely keep that in mind. There's a creative track. We're actually designing the level, designing what we're going to be building, and then a technical track, actually learning the tools. So what we're doing in this class, if you haven't already looked over the assignments, is we're going to end up with this class with a map, a 2D map inside of Google Draw that you're going to bring with you into level design and actually build this out. So this is where most of the design takes place. Once you're out of here, once you have your plan moving forward, you're just going to be implementing that inside of Unity. So it's important now that we get the design down as strong as we can. Of course, changes are going to be made moving forward when you run into roadblocks or have extra time, et cetera, et cetera. But this is where we're going to be doing the design portion. So to get started for the first portion of the lecture, we're going to just go over reviewing Perforce and getting you introduced to it. So you can follow along if you like, but I also recommend for the first few lectures to just take notes and take everything in. I recommend that. It's really helpful, especially when there's a lot of new terms going to be thrown at you, words you may not be familiar with. So it's good to write those down. All right, so I'm just going to pull up, let's just open up Perforce. So you'll open up Perforce and you'll see a login box like this. So if you're an on-campus student, it's going to be gdnperforce.fullsail.edu. All right, and then if you're an on-campus or online student, it's going to be GDN resource. All right, and here you already have users. So your user is your first part of your Full Sail email. And then here you can go ahead and create a new workspace.
we're no longer on the server 166 or whatever it is?
No, that's the default.
Do we need the 1337 feed? That
Yeah, this 1337.
So it's semicolon just.
Yeah, GDN resource dot full or GDN perforce for you guys dot fullsail.edu:1337. And you can go ahead and create a new workspace, and by default, it's going to give you this long nonsense here. But we'd like to just have you guys just rename this to be whatever your just have it to be your name, and remove this users, AOCounter, perforce stuff in between. You don't want to have it tied to a specific user in case something happens with your user. I've seen that before where the user will just be removed, and now that this folder can't be located. So just clean that up because by default perforce is going to put some long name with some numbers on the end of it. But just make it nice and clean like that, and then go ahead and log in.
What was the password again?
Right now your password is password.
Okay. No capitals or anything?
No. All right, so when you open it up, you're not going to see as many folders as I have here. You probably just see the IND229 folder inside of this. So a few basic things we're going to go over first before I get into actual class material. We'll talk about the interface of Perforce and what you're going to be expected to know this month and how you're going to use it. So here you can see these two tabs up at the top here. This is the depot and the workspace. So does anybody have any ideas what the depot is and what the workspace is? Any guesses? Anyone?
That's your depository, where all your change files go.
Okay.
And then your workspace is your active files that are being worked on.
Yep. So that's definitely in the right direction. You have the right sense. You have another way to say it?
I was actually unable to connect to the server. I have done something correctly. I was wondering if you can go over that one more time.
Okay.
So I can actually write it down to you.
What's up when you try and log in?
It says connect to server failed, check P4 port.
80. All right, so the depot versus the workspace. Cheryl, you definitely had it very close. The depot is the repository. Everything is shared on the depot. So anything that you make changes to, everyone else is going to be able to see those changes on the depot side. The workspace, and this is definitely important, the workspace is just a folder structure on your machine. You saw that when you go and create a new workspace, it's just asking you for a location on your computer. That's all it is folders on your computer somewhere. And then the depot is just going to copy itself to the workspace, right? So your workspace is just a mirror of the depot on your local side. So one command you'll see I'll use a lot, and we'll use a lot throughout the month, is down here at the bottom. You see Show in Explorer. All this is doing is popping up a Finder or Explorer window to let you see these files, through this medium rather than using Perforce. A lot of times students will want to delete content off of, they'll accidentally get like the whole month's work, and now they want to delete everything else. Like I got all these sections, but I only want to be section 1. So they'll come to Perforce and actually mark things for delete. When you're in Perforce itself, you're actually sending commands to the computer or to the server of what you want it to do. So if you want to just delete files, you can just come into a file explorer and delete them in here. Much safer than actually marking for delete is marking it for delete on the depot. So Perforce's documentation, it has been getting better this last year, especially since Helix is a company that bought them out. That's why if you notice in any of the instructions that we have for you that we've written, if the images aren't quite exactly the same, it's because Perforce has been recently purchased by Helix. But this manual here has a lot of good information. Mostly, I really like to use it for the icons. So I'm not going to really spend a lot of time in here, but These icons are really, really helpful, especially for users that want to quickly identify changes or differences. My eyes are always drawn to the icons first. It's the easiest thing to spot out. So just review this and know that this is available for you. In the Perforce setup, we have this video as well as this documentation as well as a few videos provided. One of them was by an instructor here. Another one was by Perforce's actual introductory video itself. But know that this is here. So if you see some weird icon that you're not really used to or aware of, then definitely come here to check out what it actually means. So this has a lot of other good actual information if you want to take a look through here. Just about here's basic understanding of what the workspace is, what the depot is, and how they're shared. So this will definitely get you thinking in the right terminology if you want to get more information. All right, so we went over the depot and the workspace tab. Here, this is where you actually select your workspace. So if you can't select the depot tab or you can't see anything here, definitely double check and make sure you actually have your workspace selected. And if anything ever goes wrong, don't just go ahead and panic and just create a new workspace or do something, really impulsive because you're just not sure what's wrong. Definitely version control is there to help you and prevent you from destroying a lot of things. So just take a step back and either reach out to a classmate or reach out to me and we can figure out what the issue is. But the solution of creating multiple workspaces is never a good one because then you will maybe you have the wrong one selected or files are going to certain places. You really want to make sure you just have the one workspace that you're working on. So over here on the right-hand side, these tabs are super helpful. The pending, bless you, that was a sneeze? Yeah, all right. So the pending tab, I like to always have this one open because you don't ever want to have multiple change lists down here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this filter. So you may see, by default, it may look like this, where you see every single thing on the server, all the changes that have been made. But what you want to do is just do user, and then you can do this drop down, do current user, and then you can even sort by workspace, current workspace. And this will only show you your workspace or your changes. So what a change list is, anybody know what a change list is? That's, yeah, that's along the right.
It's a running log of, okay, so-and-so checked it out. They did
That's-
this or they did not.
That's more of the history of the file. But what a change list is anytime you make changes to a file or you edit something or you add new files to the server, it goes into this change list. And when you're ready, you can submit that to the server. So it's almost saying like, all right, this is my final version. This is, I'm accepting this to go to the server. I'm positive this isn't broken or isn't going to cause any issues. So you put your changes in an actual change list. And then from here, you can actually submit them to the server. So you always want to make sure you only have one change list. Sometimes you might be working and you accidentally add something to the server or add something to a change list, and now you have multiple here. Well, you want to back these out and revert your files to prevent that from happening, from them building up, because then Perforce doesn't know which one to submit first, or when you're adding new files, it doesn't know where to put them. So it's one thing you always want to make sure you're conscious of is you only have one change list at a time. So history as well is really nice. This would be more applicable in a team setting where you can figure out who did something or who has a certain file checked out, who made changes to it. Just last month we had one student that had deleted the part of the depot on accident. So we used the history to find out when it happened, who it was, and how to take steps to correct that. So very, very powerful. And if you select over a folder, the history isn't always accurate, but if you look at a file itself, it's going to give you a lot more information. See if I can find a good example. So here when you select a folder, it has everything, and you can sort it by the time or by who it was. But when you look at an actual specific file, you can see a lot more information and actually see, let me go to one, I think the template. So here you can see when you select an actual file, you can see these actual revision numbers over here. And again, the symbols are really helpful. That this one has a plus, this one has an X, and then this one has a plus. So that means that this was added here, it was deleted at this one, and then was added again at this point. So you can get a lot more control of the actual versions of each file through the history, and just be able to know who worked on it. That's usually the biggest component. And then if you don't have those, you can open up, I think it's Actions, or no, View. Yeah, so View, you can get all these different tabs if you don't have them open already. And then sometimes it can also be hidden like this. So you go and open History, but nothing happens. It could be that it's over at the edge of the screen like that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to go over is how to get the latest files from the server, right? So you'll see in the instructions you want to go ahead and you guys are on the Perforce server, so you're going to see section 0. So you just want to go ahead and, while there's empty, while no one has submitted their project yet, go ahead and get the latest of that folder. So to do that, you just right-click on it and do Get Latest Revision. So what that's doing is it's just copying the files from the depot over to your workspace. So you now have the most up-to-date recent files from the server on your machine. So you're going to also need to get the IND content folder. This has all the information that you need for the class and most of the assignments. Also, inside of the Scraps Assets folder, you're going to see 2 extra folders in there, 2 subfolders, a project template and the Scraps Asset Depot. So the Asset Depot has a lot of art and assets and things that you'll be using in the upcoming months to help build your level. Right now we're just focused on the blockout, but this has a lot of good assets we've compiled for you. This project template, so if you want to, go ahead and get latest on this project template now, because we're going to be setting that up. So if you notice, I already have this on my machine. So if you look at the log down at the bottom, when I do Get Latest Revision, it's telling me no files are updated. So I already have the most recent up-to-date files on my computer. But what I can do, and very, very powerful thing, say for example I go to this, let's see, I'm going to show in Explorer. So here's this project template here. If I just go into like the assets folder, and say I go into the scene, something happened to my danger zone scene, so it's corrupted now. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it and get it from the server again. All right. So now if I come back to Perforce and I go to the scenes folder and do Get Latest Revision, you're going to see that same thing again, right? No files updated, because Perforce thinks I have the most recent files on my computer, because it says here I have version 3 of 3. Well, one way to get by this is right underneath Get Latest Revision, there's Get Revision with the 3 dots. If you go ahead and open this up, this just allows you to get certain revisions, or you can get something from a specific time. So I could get something from a change list. I could do it based on a date and time. If like I know at 5 o'clock on Saturday this was working, so I'm going to get the project from 5 o'clock on Saturday, figure out what broke, and then fix it from there. You could do it from a lot of different other options, mostly date and time and revision. So you could do a revision number. Like I know version 4 of 5 of this file was working. Why isn't it now? You can go back and get that revision. But if you just keep Get Latest on there and do Force Operation, so this is basically just telling Perforce to use brute force. Just get every single file, copy it onto my computer, even if you think I have the most recent, copy it again anyways. So I'm going to do a Get Revision and force the operation from the scenes file. And now it found a lot of files on here that I didn't have on my computer. So not only did it find the all these new files here, it also found that danger zone that that I had just deleted. So that's the two differences between get latest revision and get revision. Just sometimes you may need to delete something on your machine and grab something from the server, or for whatever reason it's just not getting the files. You can do get revision just to force it to happen. Alrighty, so the next concept I want to cover, and this is definitely an important one, so if you have any questions while I'm going over this, definitely ask me now, because what we're going to go over here is just the overall workflow that you're going to be going through when you're actually submitting files to Perforce. So what I'm going to do is, I guess I'm going to go ahead and just set up my project. So I'll show you guys pretty much what you're going to do is get the project template from the depot. All right, so you're going to see there's these three files here. This .vs is what holds files to keep Visual Studios working. Yeah, so this is a part of getting Visual Studios to run with Unity. So then we have the assets and the project settings. So you'll notice though, when you open up the project, this library folder gets created by Unity, and we don't want to have this on the server. So when you copy it over and you haven't opened it up yet, you're only going to have these three folders. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show this in Explorer, open this. I'm just going to remove it, so this is what you guys will see. So you have your project template here. So what you're going to do is copy this folder, and now go over to your working folder. So inside your section, you see this compiled and working folder. In the working folder, this is where you're going to actually submit your Unity project, the project you're going to be working on throughout the month. Compiled is just where you turn in your actual assignments. So I'm going to do mine in the sandbox, but know that you're going to go into the working folder and do this. So I'm just going to show this in Explorer. This is a sandbox I have. I'm going to paste this in here. All right, and I'm just going to name it. So this is what you should be naming it: project underscore last name underscore first name. I'm just going to do a shortcut name to keep in mind which project I'm working on. But this is the naming convention you guys want to use right here: last name underscore first name. All right. So now that I have this folder, I move this folder in here. If I go back to my workspace, so here's my sandbox that I have. Now I see this new project here, this new project I just copied over. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I need to add this to the server. All right, so one thing I can do here is just go ahead and select Mark for Add. All right, so now it's going to add all these files. So if I go over to my pending list, it has added those files to this change list over here. So you can see now there's 1,300 files in this change list. So those are now being marked for add. If I look in this in the window over here, you can see the files next to them have little icons with red plus signs next to them. That's a shortcut for you to know that they're being marked for add. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and submit this. All right, this change list pops up. I'm just going to do adding new project. So I'm just going to throw this up here so I can show you the two workflows you're going to be using going forward. So most often when you're working on files, and this is the standard practice, but Unity makes it difficult because of the meta files that are attached to everything. But so there's a workflow that I like to call just the checkout workflow. So where you just find the file that you want to work on, you check it out, and then you edit it and then submit it. So say for example, we have, let's see, I'm just going to go ahead and open up, let's just use one of these examples. So here I have this example text file here. All right, so if I try and edit it now, it shouldn't let me because it's marked as read only. Right there. So it's set to read only, so it's asking it for a different name. So if I want to actually change this file, what I have to do is right click on it, check it out. All right, it gets added to that change list, so I'm telling it to go to the default change list. And now you should see updates. There should be a little check mark next to it. There we go. So there's a little check mark next to the file letting me know that I can now edit this file. So now I can just double click right from Perforce, open it up, make a change. All right, now I was able to save it, and I think I just got this other one going. So now once I have that that file changed, now I'm able to submit it. So I can come over to this change list and hit submit. And it's doing its thing with my other submission at the same time right now. But that's the workflow you would take to actually check out files and make changes to them. So you would check something out, make an edit, and then submit it. That's totally well and good and definitely usable with Unity. But one thing you're going to notice with a Unity project on Perforce is every single file has a metadata file attached to it. So if I go ahead and take a look at one of these in Explorer, these are the meta files just for these folders right here. So each folder here has a meta file attached to it. So I go into like the scenes. Here's the danger zone scene, but then here is the meta file that goes with that. Here's a terrain asset, and here's the meta file that goes with that. So these meta files are constantly being changed all the time by Perforce. We don't necessarily know when they're changing. Most of the time when you're making an edit, the file will be changed in some capacity, but it's nothing that we're able to keep track of. So yes, you can check out, like say you want to make a change to a script. You can check out the script and check out the meta file, do your changes, all good, and then submit it like that normal standard workflow. But that's a lot to manage and keep track of. So it's important that you understand another workflow that will alleviate some of that tediousness that you'll have to go through with setting up the actual project. So anyone have any questions about checking out files, changing them, and submitting them? That's pretty straightforward, everybody. Question?
So we're using section 0 for now for the working?
Yeah, you guys are section 0. You should see section 0 and then inside of there compiled and working. So the first thing you can do, I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit with the project template, but the first thing you can do is just inside the working folder, go ahead and where this example, Barack Obama example is, go ahead and just create a folder with your name on it, last name, first name, and then in there you can put your contact info. So everyone can go ahead and do that to practice just adding a file to the server. And once you have this folder in here, then you can put the template inside that folder.
How do we go about adding it?
So you would just be, you can just show in Explorer. All right, good question. So then in here, I can just do new folder, right, and just create whatever you want in this, right, because it's just a location on your computer. And then just going to do a new text document. Okay. All right, so now I can come back to now that I did that, I can come back over to the Workspace tab, and now I can see that over here. Oh, there should be a file in there. Yeah, and then you can just put your contact info in there, just Skype or email, whatever, because your classmates can see this as well. So any contact information you want.
You mark a folder for add, does it mark everything inside the folder for that?
Yeah, yeah.
We just add a text document.
Yeah, I just added a text document with my email address. Ready.
And what are we doing with that with copying and pasting something? Or
Yeah, you're setting up the project um, that we. So you're going to copy it and then put it in that folder you just created to set up your actual project. So what I'm going to go over next, so we talked about checking out your work to make changes, but I'm also going to show you what's called reconciling offline work. So this is a little bit more of an advanced method of working, but it can definitely be very useful when you're using Unity and adding those meta files. So say I'm just working in Unity, and one thing to keep in mind right now is that everything that I'm doing, I'm not editing anything in Perforce. Everything right now is checked in. Nothing I'm doing is is being affected through Perforce just yet. So here I am. I'm in this danger zone scene. This is a scene you guys would be getting familiar with. But say I'm in here and I want to go ahead and create. I just want to create a cube. I'm going to put this over here. So I'm just working on my project. I'm in here. I'm editing a scene. Right. Just say I'm just working on something. I also want to come into say in this folder here, this scenes folder, I just want to create a new script. All right, so I made it, I edited my scene, I created a script. Say I also want to create a new material. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to put a color on this, why not? And I'm going to apply this to this new object I just made. Pumpkin image going on. Oh, that's why. Canvas. All right, so now I've made a few changes. Right now I could go in this script and edit something, but this is just to show you I'm trying to get to an example here. So if I go ahead and save the scene and save the project, make sure everything's saved in here. So now I come back to Perforce, and if I go to Perforce, it's not going to detect those changes just yet. But what I can do is what's called reconciling offline work. So what this is actually doing is it's going to compare my workspace to the depot and find any differences, right? So if there's new files, it's going to mark them for add. If they're existing files that I've made changes to, it's going to check them out. And then if anything that I deleted, it's going to mark it for delete. So it's going to scan your workspace for anything that's different, anything that's changed, and add that to a change list for you. So it's going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting and behind the scenes. So that way it makes your workflow a lot easier inside of Unity itself. So one thing to keep in mind is you don't ever want to reconcile offline work from the project template, from the root folder itself, because what it's doing is it's going to scan everything below that, all the subfolders. So if you look on your computer, once you actually open the project, that library folder and that temp folder are created, and you don't want to have those on the server at all. Those are constantly being edited and changed and modified by Unity. And if what Perforce does is mark them as read-only, and Unity will just freak out because now they can't change those files when I need to be doing it constantly. And they're local to every machine. They're unique to everybody's computer. So that's not like it's something you want to share anyways. So you never want to reconcile from this root. You don't ever want to do that. Always from the assets or the project settings is as high up as you want to go. But one thing to keep in mind is when you do it from the assets, it's going to scan every single subfolder. So it's important that you manage your assets and you don't just put them all over the place and now you don't even know where things are located. I once had a student, I was working with him in lab, and I asked him, all right, well, show me the script where you wrote this functionality to happen. And he said to me, well, how do I know if I wrote that script? I was like, well, did you write the script or not? And so he had so many he had like assets in his scripts folder and prefabs just all over the project, and it just wasn't very well organized. So he wasn't conscious of what he wrote, what was located where, and it just becomes a lot more difficult to work like that, especially when you get to more stressful times and crunch time trying to get things completed in a short amount of time. So you want to just keep everything contained. When you're working on your separate projects, your separate assignments, create separate folders for them and just put everything you're using for that assignment in there. So you'll notice everything I did in the project in Unity, I was in that scenes folder. That's why I created that material and that script in that folder, just so I can come over to the scenes itself. And here's this reconcile offline work. So I'm going to do it from the scenes folder, and it's going to detect any changes that have been made. So immediately this window will pop up. So at this top, these three windows here, this top one, it says modified files. So things that I checked out or things that I had edited. So I changed that scene itself, right? I added that cube to it. So this is saying this is going to check out this file. So files not in the depot, these are new, right? Here's that script I created with the meta file, and then here's that material I created with the meta file. And if anything was deleted, it would go in here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and hit reconcile. And what reconcile is doing is it's moving those into an actual change list. So you see over here, now here's all of those files that I can very easily submit. So you can see how that is a much easier and nicer workflow rather than having to come to Unity or come to Perforce, check out certain files, go back, work on a script, go back and submit it. You can very easily just work on things in Unity and then come back and every 20 or 30 minutes, short time intervals. You don't want to wait days or you don't want to wait long hours before you actually submit. You can go ahead and make changes and then come back here and then very easily submit them. So one thing to keep in mind, and I'm not going to try and scare you, I just want you to really understand what can happen with this, is you're changing files that are technically read-only. So if, say, we're working on a team and someone comes up and they're like, hey guys, I just made changes to my scene. Go ahead and get latest from from the project. So I'm like, all right, cool. I go ahead and get latest. And now, anyone have an idea of what might happen if I didn't reconcile my work first? Yeah, exactly, right? So what is get latest revision doing? It's just copying the files from the depot onto my workspace. So it's just going to mirror exactly what's the same. So if you have something that Perforce doesn't know about, it's just going to wipe it out. So it doesn't happen all the time, but it's just something you have to be aware of. It especially happens to students that try and they're just intimidated or afraid of Perforce. They'll just wait until Sunday night or wait until the due date to try and turn everything in. And now if they accidentally click the wrong button, that's a week's worth of work just gone, right? So if you waited 20 minutes or in a half an hour to do it while you're still learning, while you're still understanding the system, you've only lost 20 minutes worth of work, not days, right? You can very easily recover from that. So very, very powerful what reconciling offline work does. So just understand what it's actually doing, and you won't ever get into to those predicaments like that. So say I accidentally added my library folder, or I realize I don't want these changes on the server, right? There's a few different ways you can navigate through that, but you don't ever need to actually submit the files. If you've caught yourself, and this can definitely happen, like I mentioned, if someone tries to delete part of their workspace, but they're doing it from Perforce rather than from their computer, if you get those in a change list like this, you can do what's called revert files. And revert files is basically just an undo. It's just backing those changes out of backing those files out of the change list. So I can go ahead and hit revert files. It's going to scan all these. Notice that these ones are new, so it's going to go ahead and revert these so I can select which ones I want, which ones I don't. And now it's just going to back all those files out of there and make it very clean for me so I can continue working. So definitely very, very useful as well. I see that happen very often where files have been added to the change list, so there's 4 or 5 change lists here, all with files in them. And usually the first process you want to go through is just backing them out, reverting everything, getting it to a clean state, and then submitting from there. So this isn't actually changing files. It's just telling Perforce, hey, remove these from the change list. I want to add them again or figure out what I need to add here. All right, so that pretty much covers everything as far as actual Perforce goes. I can talk about the actual Unity project. Does anybody have any questions about what's up?
Instead of checking them out and resubmitting every time, you're just doing all your work on your local computer and then reconciling before you download any of the assets?
Yeah, before I get any updates or get anything from my team. In this case, like this month and level design is all going to be individual. But think about the big picture. Think about what this is actually used for in the industry, what the end game is of this. We want to be using this on a team. Everyone in this room could be working on one Unity project. So it's important that you kind of manage what's being changed and what's being modified. My question?
So whenever we're working on our projects, using the project template, that's what we're going to be using for our assignment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we submit that back to the working folder we just made.
Yep.
The last name, first name.
Yep. So yeah, so everything for the class itself is going to go in the working folder. So you'll see, I think I had one.
So we're section 0, right?
Yep, you're section 0.
Okay.
And we're supposed to have project template in the working.
Yeah, that's your next step. Is you'll grab the project template and then copy it, rename it, and then put it in that working folder. So yeah, so like I mentioned before, that library and temp files you don't want to have in there, as well as you may also notice when you open up Visual Studios. Let me go ahead and do it. Question?
We no longer use Visual Studios because
You use MonoDevelop?
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I personally like Visual Studios, and I'm actually come from an art background. So a little bit about me. I've got a few minutes to give my little blurb, but I went to Full Sail actually in 2009 for game art. Graduated in 2011, and then I was offered an internship opportunity for the game design program, and I worked in Final Project for about 3 years or so as a lab instructor, helping out with Final Project games. A lot of team meetings, a lot of playing their games, giving feedback, things like that. So I come from a team-based setting. I worked with them, and I know what it's like at the end of the road. So now I'm towards the beginning. I'm spreading my knowledge to help you guys get ready for a final project and the other portfolio classes. So throughout the month, I'll show you little like tips and tricks and things that I think would be useful to you guys as designers, like inside of Maya. I'll show you some cool little tricks and things that will help you understand art a little bit more and be able to communicate to artists and communicate to each other about certain things, and maybe pull back that curtain of things that might be confusing or mysterious to you. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've worked on a few mobile games. We shipped a PS4 game with a few coworkers. So I've just been working, and as well as like doing contract work, still building my resume. So if you have any questions at all about like Maya, Photoshop, things like that, it's kind of my wheelhouse. And ever since then, I've been learning scripting and learning as much as I can in C#. So if I open up this script, you should see. Yeah, you should see now these files get created. And I think it may actually be the same if you're in MonoDevelop, except they're not. This one won't be a Microsoft Visual Studio. It'll be something else. But these files here, also, you don't want to add these .cs proj files. You don't want to add these to the server as well, to the depot. You should only ever have that assets and project settings are the two that you definitely need on there. And this .visual studios this could be, this technically could be in the assets. You just don't ever want to have these library and temp folders. It'll cause all kinds of problems, and I'm sure it'll happen this month, and we'll troubleshoot it. But just be conscious of what you're working on and what you're adding.
So we don't want to add those to our copy.
You don't want to. You're going to when you copy things off the depot. You're going to see that there isn't any project settings, or there isn't any any library folders. There's just this. But when you actually open the project, when you open it in Unity, Unity's going to make those files automatically. It's just going to build them. So you can actually just delete the library folder and then open the project and watch them be created again. Just like what I just did was I opened Visual Studios, and now all these files got created. So you don't ever want to have those on the server, because those are the read-only ones that Unity wants to be changing. All right, so in the project itself, this is the danger zone scene. So you can go ahead and come in here and just play around, get a feel for what it is that we're going to be working on. So we're going to be working on a small game called Scraps. It was developed by a course director here, just the concept. And you can see one of your early assignments is the creative vision discussion, to read the creative vision, understand what we're actually designing for. But this is the project template that you've been provided, and from here you're able to do whatever you want to design. So you're able to create whatever you want as long as it's within what you are possible of creating. So keep that in mind. You're designing to your own scope. So if you think you can tackle something very advanced or very complex, go for it if you think you have the time for it. If you just want to challenge yourself but not, bite off too much, just keep that in mind. You're designing for yourselves at this point. So there is some limits in the creative vision, but a lot of those are there to protect you from yourselves as well. Like things like AI, we get all the time. Like, oh, I want to have enemies in my level that are patrolling, and then there's combat, and I'm like, there's a whole nother class for that. How are you gonna get that to actually function, right? So we provided this grav null. We called it the grav null. So it's just that 3D object there, that sphere that's being created. It allows me to pick up objects that are tagged a certain way and manipulate them. So I'm able to do different things with this mechanic. So you can go ahead and download this, play around with this, get a good feel of it. That's what today's for, is just understanding what we're providing you with. And then from there, it's about what you can design. Inside the content folder, so that's the template in the assets. In the content folder, the things you want to look at right away would probably be this README. This just shows you the controls of everything, as well as gives you an understanding of everything we've included for you and what you're using to build your design with. So that's the danger zone. I'm going to go over a little bit. So for the playground assignment, and anyone online that's taking this class again, this is slightly different, and you will probably appreciate that the size of the template is much smaller than it was in previous months. So we stripped out a few things that you don't need quite yet, and you'll be getting them later on. But this is the danger zone that just has everything we've provided for you. I'm just going to real quickly go over actually setting up your project assignments, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using this template. You'll notice in the scenes there's this IND229, that's this class, Project Portfolio 2, and then there's also a level design folder. So you can get a sneak peek of what you're actually going to be doing next month. You're going to be using this same template here. Myself and the instructors in that class have been working very closely to get to this point where we're using one template, everything's very streamlined, and it feels like it's a continuous project rather than very individualized and segmented. So you'll see that there's this LD hub level here. So you can go ahead and open this and play around in it. Not as elaborate and cool as the danger zone, but you can see there's 4 little portals here, and these are going to lead to your other assignments for the class. So what you can do is in this level manager here, you can see that there's multiple elements, right? So what these elements are looking for are actual scene names. So what you can do is go ahead and, one thing you can do is select all of them and drag them into your hierarchy over here, and this is going to load all of them at the same time into here, right? This comes with Unity 5.3. 5.3 was the first one that allowed you to have the multi-scene editing. So we're going to be using this. If you haven't already, we're going to be using this in this class, getting you familiar with how to have multiple scenes open, how to edit certain ones, and then from there, you go into the ASCOR level manager, and you go ahead and plug in the names. You just have to type in the names of these scenes. So when you're working on these assignments this month, don't create a new project. Please do not create a new project. It happens all the time. I don't know why. We gave you guys this awesome project with all this cool stuff. Don't create a new project. Everything you can do is in these actual scenes. So when you go and work on your visuals and setting, open up the visuals and setting assignment, or open up the visuals and setting scene and work in there. The instructions right now probably still say open a new scene. I'm planning on going through these 4 assignments today and just changing that. You probably won't even be getting to those, the visuals and setting, until probably Wednesday or Thursday, most likely. But just know that these scenes are here for you guys to utilize. So now that those are in here, if I play, it's going to have all these scenes in here. So now I also have these fancy little pop-ups. You can come in here and it'll tell you, which scene you're about to walk into. So a lot of this stuff you see on the screen, like the inventory, these objectives, the mini-map, we're not necessarily using it a ton in this class. So you're going to be getting familiar with it, and you're really going to get into detail actually constructing your map inside here in level design. So you should have something like this with your level manager all plugged in. So what you want to do from here is actually submit a build. So in Perforce, I'll go back to, so here you can see, you have your working and your compiled folder. In the compiled folder, we have all of our assignment names, and their names, if you see, why are all these weird numbers here? That's just so they line up exactly with the ones in FSO. So I wanted to try and make it as obvious as possible where each one goes. So for the playground, all I want you to do is create an EXE. So I want you to show me you got the project template, you got it running, and you know how to build an EXE, and you know how to submit it to Perforce. So at first it may be like a very long process to get it set up, make sure you got the template, get it loaded in Unity, but this is a very, very quick assignment. It's due on Friday, I think, but I mean, first 20 minutes in lab, you guys should have it done. You can submit it, and I'll check you off and give you credit for it. So what you're going to do is, again, I'm just going to show and explore. And now in the playground, I can just create a new folder. So this is last name, first name, playground. All right, so now I have that folder there. So now I can come over to Unity, and this is also in the instructions, but you go into the build settings, and right now it just has the hub level in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and, again, just drag and drop these in here. Make sure you have the PC, Mac, Linux build. Now if I do build, it wants me to select a folder. Where am I going to put this? Well, since I already created that folder and I've been smart about following the instructions, because this is the instructions to do it in this order, you can just go ahead and go to that spot. So I put it in, there it is. There's my, select the folder where you want the build to go to, and then name it. So I'm going to do playground. All right, it's going to do its thing. Should be pretty quick because they're very basic scenes. So what this is doing is it's going to create an EXE that you can run all on its own, but it's also building a data folder. So you can see, and of course I didn't quite follow directions. So all this stuff should be in this folder. So this data folder that gets created, this is required for the build to actually run. Don't ask me what these assets do. I don't know. There's things in here I'm not sure, but I know that this data folder, if it doesn't exist, this won't run. So it may work for you fine on your computer, but if you only submit the EXE and not the data folder to Perforce, I'm not going to be able to play it. Neither is anyone else. So now I can just open this up, and hopefully this works. Should be fine. So now you can see I have all the scenes, and you actually saw, if you notice, they're loading in on runtime. So you'll see everything pop in, and now this is just the basis. This is what you're going to be working on the rest of the month. So this just gives me a sense that you know how to make a build, how to load in these scenes properly, really how to follow instructions, because everything we have is written out for you, and then it's about coming back to Perforce and actually submitting what you've just created. So now you'll come to the workspace, you'll see that folder. All right, now I can just mark it for add. It's going to find all of those files, and then I can go ahead and submit it. All right, so that's actually submitting the EXE itself, but definitely make sure you go into your working folder and submit your Unity project also. It's really, really important that this is the month that you get practice with Perforce in Unity. Like, it's one thing to just work in Unity, do your thing, and then just mark for add and submit your assignments. You're getting the spirit of Perforce, but you're not actually using version control. So I really want you to take it seriously, and like when you're working on the visuals and setting assignment, which is just, if you haven't looked already, it'll be later on this week, and I'll go over it a little bit more detail and the tools you need to be successful in that assignment. But when you're working on that, just go back to Perforce and just submit your changes, like every hour, every 2 hours. Don't wait the whole time or never do it at all. Really get practice doing that stuff now. So let's pull it up here. So this image that I have selected right here, this is like the first thing you're going to be working on, is just recreating this as best as you can inside of Unity, right? So just building it with the level blocking meshes and using the assets we provided you, finding your own textures, to just get that as best as you can. So what you can do is in the visuals and setting scene, right? So it should be here. I have created this camera. So what you can do is just turn this on, and then you can go to the character and then turn him off, right? So just disable them. And now you can, position this wherever you want. But yeah, just feel free to use this scene here to actually build that image, right? And then when you hit play with that character turned off, it's just going to go to your camera like that. And we can actually like disable the HUD and things like that. But you can get this set up, how you want it, and then you'll feel free to change these however you want. Don't think you have to work in just this cylinder here. You can change this to be whatever shape you want. I just have it so where at the end of the month you have all 4 of your projects that you worked on in a nice little display for you there. So each one of these scenes we're going to be working in moving forward. So definitely get this set up and take this portion, take this seriously, because this is going to be like the springboard into the next 3 weeks. All right, so any questions at all about the project itself or any of that? So in lab, we're going to be spending some time actually setting up the project. So if you have any more questions, we can go over that. But anything in terms of actual like Perforce workflow, like anything with reconciling offline work?
Yeah. One question. I
Justin?
was wondering if there's like a
Yeah, the library and the temp folder. Yeah, so you never want to reconcile or mark for add this actual root folder.
So whenever we get it originally, download it, and then you want to go ahead and make a copy of that one directly and then put it in the folder.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Yeah, so you can notice even in the workspace here, I have this library in this temp folder. Not a big deal, but I just don't ever want it on the actual depot side.
Is there a way that you can set your workspace to exclude certain folders?
I really wish that was the case. That's a really good question. You're not really able to. So in Bitbucket and SourceTree, they use what's called an ignore list,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
GitHub has it as well. And I think so. What the reason why we kind of have to jump through hoops like this, and why I showed you reconciling offline work, is it really comes down to Perforce in Unity. So with the free version of Unity, it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to ignore certain files. So that would actually come from the pro version. As you can, there's a menu right in Unity down here for Perforce, and you can very easily set your ignore files. You can check in things and add things to the server right from Unity, so you don't have to go into Unity itself. So that's just a limitation we have from using the free version. So the short answer is that no, Perforce itself doesn't have like an ignore list or an ignore log that you can have. Other question?
So when and exactly how do we get that Unity add-on for building the level? Because we don't have that or does that come with the actual?
You're talking about these level blocking tools?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the project. That's in the project itself. So we're going to switch gears for a little while. I have, so I try to do my best to every lecture or every time we're going over some stuff to have a creative element and a technical element. So obviously there was plenty of technical stuff there going over Perforce. So we're going to switch gears and we're just going to go over we're going to watch the John Cleese video. So that's the first portion of the creative discussion and the brainstorming, is having that all set up, or having watched that. So let's go ahead and knock that out now. Just going to pull that up.
Can I ask a question real quick about why my about my Perforce.